Greetings, fellow soldiers, and welcome to Satoshi's Militia, where we honor American patriotism and share Bitcoin principles. In this episode, we're going to talk about what is known as the shot heard around the world. The shot heard around the world refers to the opening shots of the American Revolutionary War at the Battle of Lexington and Concord on April 19, 1775. This event marked the beginning of armed conflict between British forces and American colonial militias and ultimately led to the American colony's declaration of independence from Britain. The story of the shot heard around the world at Lexington and Concord are as follows. In the years leading up to the American Revolutionary War, tensions between American colonies and British authorities had been escalating due to issues such as taxation without representation, British military presence in the colonies, and restrictions on colonial self-governance. In April 1775, General Thomas Gage, the British governor of Massachusetts, received orders to disarm the colonial militias and seize stockpiled weapons and ammunition in the towns of Lexington and Concord, northwest of Boston. On the night of April 18, 1775, American patriot Paul Revere and other writers, including William Dawes and Samuel Prescott, rode through the countryside warning colonial militias of the British advance. Revere famously shouted, "The British are coming." In the early morning hours of April 19th, British troops arrived in Lexington, where they encountered a small group of colonial militia known as the Minutemen. The two sides faced off on Lexington Green, and amid confusion and conflicting orders, a shot was fired. The identity of the first person to fire the shot at Lexington remains uncertain. This shot, however, ignited the skirmish and became known as the shot heard around the world. After the brief exchange at Lexington, British troops proceeded to Concord, where they encountered a larger force of colonial militia. The two sides engaged in a series of skirmishes, and the British were ultimately forced to retreat to Boston, harassed along the way by colonial militia. The battles of Lexington and Concord were the first military engagements of the Revolutionary War. The events of April 19, 1775 galvanized support for the colonial cause and the formal declaration of independence from Britain in 1776. The shot heard around the world remains a significant moment in American history and is commemorated annually as Patriots' Day in Massachusetts. Satoshi Nakamoto's first Bitcoin transaction was sent to Hal Finney and is a significant milestone in the early history of Bitcoin. Hal Finney was a well-respected computer scientist and cypherpunk who was an early contributor to the development of cryptographic technologies and digital currencies. The transaction between Satoshi Nakamoto and Hal Finney occurred on January 12, 2009, just a few days after the Bitcoin network went live with the mining of the Genesis block. This transaction is notable not just for being the first transaction, but for its historical significance in demonstrating the functionality of the cryptocurrency. In this first transaction, Satoshi sent 10 Bitcoins to Hal Finney. The transaction was included in block 170, which was mined by Satoshi Nakamoto himself. Hal Finney was an early supporter of Bitcoin and had been corresponding with Satoshi Nakamoto on the cryptography mailing list and on the Bitcoin Talk forum. He was intrigued by the concept of a decentralized digital currency and was among the first to download it and run the Bitcoin software. Prior to the transaction with Hal Finney, Satoshi had conducted some test transactions on the Bitcoin network to ensure that the system was functioning correctly. The transaction to Hal was the first real-world use of Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. This transaction demonstrated the practical utility of Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It showcased the potential for individuals to transact directly with one another without the need for intermediaries like banks or financial institutions. Hal Finney continued to be actively involved in the Bitcoin community in the years following the transactions. He made valuable contributions to the development of Bitcoin and was a vocal advocate for the technology up until his passing in 2014. This first transaction is a pivotal moment in Bitcoin history, symbolizing the beginning of a new era of decentralized digital currency, and it paved the way for widespread adoption and acceptance of Bitcoin around the world. Thanks for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.